for zero. Not long ago, Zero lay floating on the calm waters of the central lake. He could hear the happy cries of the other numbers 1 through 9 as they played in the meadow. Zero didn't play add 'em up because he had nothing to add. He felt he had no place among all the other digits. Zero lived in Digitaria, a curious country ruled by King Multiplus and Queen Adeline. Their positive outlook helped the kingdom prosper. Count Infinity, the king's trusted advisor, was the one who shaped all the numbers. When old digits retired, he replaced them with shiny new numerals. Every number knew its place. A 7 was the number of days in a week, and a 5 was the number of points on a star. A 2 was handy for counting the wheels on a bicycle. The 1s were important because Count Infinity added them together to make the other numbers. Every number had a place except 0. Count Infinity had been experimenting when he formed the strange new digit. But 0 meant nothing, and no one was sure what his job would be. King Multiplus declared that no more zeros would be made until they found a purpose for this one. 0 was alone. Nowadays, no one mentioned 0 very much. The few times someone tried to count with him, they always ended up with nothing. I need to find my place, 0 thought. He decided to go back to visit the wise old Count Infinity and ask his advice. Count Infinity made incredible things. He made knickknacks, whatsits, and thingamajigs. The most impressive thing he ever made was an enormous machine, the Numberator. The Numberator had a vacuum tube on one side and a large curved spout on the other. When Count Infinity placed digits under the tube, they were sucked up with a great clinking and whirling until finally they emerged from their sprout and with a totally new number. Count Infinity could put in 2 1s and make a bouncy baby 2 or 3 1s and make a bouncy or roly-poly little 3. As 0 stood shyly in the doorway, Count Infinity looked up and noticed him. "Ah, young 0, Infinity exclaimed. "You're just in time to help me figure out a better way to make a 1. "What do you mean?" 0 asked. "Well, most numbers are easy to make. I simply pop a handful of 1s into my trusty Numberator. Making a 1, though, that's trickier. To make a 1, Count Infinity explained, I spend hours handcrafting it from a special material called Integrum. Why don't you just stick a 1 into the numerator?" 0 asked. Count Infinity sighed. "I've tried that, but the numerator adds. You have to put at least 2 numbers. No 2 numbers that I can think of add up to..." Count Infinity eyed 0 in a strange way. "Could you put this 1 into the numerator for me?" the Count asked. "Just help the 1 stand right under the vacuum tube." As 0 did, he was sucked up into the numerator along with 1. 0 barely had time to realize what was happening. Before he was on the other side, sitting next to him were the old 1 and a new shiny 1. "Wonderful!" Count Infinity cried. "We have discovered your additive identity. I bet my binomials that if we add you to any number, we will always come up with the same number. You can help replenish the supply of digits in Digitaria." 0 thanked the Count and slowly walked home. He was happy to have a job, but somehow he wasn't satisfied. 1s could make digits too. He wanted to do something no one else could do. "I still feel like I haven't really found my place," he said to himself. As Zero walked, he had an idea. I wondered what would happen if I were multiplied by another number. Everyone knew that multiplication was a powerful thing and that the king could use it. Often the product of the multiplied numbers would be too large for anyone else to understand. Zero swallowed hard at the boldness of his idea, and then he stood up straight as a round digit can. I will ask the king, he decided, and he set off for the castle. In the gates of the castle, Zero was stopped by two sharp-looking sevens. "What kind of number are you?" one guard asked. "You look like a 9 someone has squished." Both guards began to laugh. "I need to ask the king about multiplication," said Zero. The guards stopped laughing. They looked at each other. "What," said one. "You'd better go right in." Zero entered the castle. He saw King Multiplus and Queen Adeline on their thrones. Crowds of numbers filled the hall, waiting to address him. The 5 standing next to the 0 asked why he was there. "I'm asking the king to multiply me," 0 answered. The 5 gasped. Other numbers who heard began to whisper, "Absolute nonsense. It's too much." Soon a loud buzz began to ripple through the hall. "What is the meaning of this?" King Multiplus boomed, displeased by the growing confusion. "It's 0, Queen Adeline told him, and something about multiplication." "Multiplication?" the king exclaimed. "That's serious business. Let him come forward and explain himself." The room was silent. "I would like to be multiplied," 0 told the king. "I thought it might help me find a place and a purpose." "Yes," the king said. "I have wondered myself what would happen." He ordered the guards to fetch his multitube. The tube was made of a solid integrum. "We need to find someone who's willing to be multiplied with 0, the king said. No one moved. Finally, a young one stepped forward. "I'll do it," said the brave one. Together, 0 and the 1 jumped into the factor end of the tube. All that could be heard was the clanking and whirling of the tube. Suddenly, 0 and the 1 shot out the other end of the tube. As 0 looked around, he saw beside him a small, round figure who looked strangely familiar. "Five alive!" exclaimed the king. "It's another 0. The other numbers were speechless. "Why, we must try this again," declared the flabbergasted king. "This time we will multiply 0 with the 7. He called one of the 7 guards, and the guards' knees shook as they stepped forward. The same thing happened with the 0 and the 7. The king laughed and said, "Well, 0, you have your answer. No matter what number we multiply you by, we get 0. That was big news. The other numbers chattered excitedly, but 0 said, "Now there are more 0s with no real place." The 1 patted 0 on the back. 0 was glad to have a friend at all times like this. "I want to make new numbers that no one else has ever seen before," 0 said. "Sire, what number do you get if you add 1 to 9? It was one of those questions that no one ever asked. The king coughed. "As everyone knows, anything bigger than a 9 is many," he said. "We don't think about 1 plus 9 because there's no digit for a number that big." 0 looked at the 1 standing next to him, and he rubbed his eyes together. He and the 1 looked like this: 1, 0. "Sire," he cried, "look at us. We can add a new number to represent what you get when you add 9 plus 1. The king scratched his chin. 0 asked 9 ones to stand together. "Sire, if we add 1 more to this group, we could use a 0 to show that all those 1s have moved over to the next place. When I stand in this place next to my friend, 1 as a 0 can represent 0 ones, but he represents 9 plus 1. I like your thinking, 0, said the king. But, he whispered, I can't call the new number 9 plus 1. Quick, think of a new name. 0 whispered back. This new number will attend to a lot of business. We could call it attend. The king couldn't hear 0 very well. So in a loud voice he said, I proclaim the new number will be called attend. The numbers all loved it. Hooray for 10! Hooray for 10! They cheered. The numbers crowded around 0 as they asked if they could stand beside him. 0 gave Digit a turn, and soon they were making wonderful new numbers like 20, 30, 60, and 90. Before long, they were standing next to each other in different combinations to make all kinds of new numbers like 32, 47, 89, and on and on. Big numbers didn't seem quite so scary anymore. When the excitement calmed down, 0 felt someone tugging at his arm. What about me? Asked a small voice. It's my turn to stand next to you, said the little 0. I'm sorry, 0 said. 2 zeros standing next to each other will equal nothing. The little 0 looked so sad that the brave 1 and the 0 each put an arm around her, and suddenly 0 had a thought. Look, sire, he called to the king. What do we look like? The king said slowly, Why, you look like a new number, bigger than anyone I've ever seen before, bigger than the number 90. 0 said proudly, We can represent what you get when you have 10 tens. Splendid, exclaimed the king. Soon all the digits were clamoring to stand next to the 2 zeros. They made numbers like 500 and 700. A 9 got so excited when he helped make the number 900 that he almost fell over. In the middle of the excitement, 0 noticed Count Infinity beaming at him. Well, 0, the Count smiled. Did you find out what you were looking for? 0 nodded. I just wanted to mean more than nothing, he said, and now I think I finally found my place. From then on, 0 played Add 'em Up as happily as everyone else.